I want to move on. Thank you. Jerry, do you want to ask a question?
All right. Just about a year ago, Philip Alston, who was the UN Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty, visited Britain. He toured the country, and he said that he found that there was almost a complete disconnect between what he saw and what ministers were telling us about what was going on. He made a very brutal report. He said that the endless repeated mantra about rising employment overlooks that close to 40% of children are living in poverty, 16% of those over 65 live in relative poverty, and many of those...
Could you get to the question, please?
Yes, I'm coming to the point now. Many of those in work are dependent on various forms of charity. So the question really is, what is the party's take on this extreme attack on the poor and the disabled, which is daily causing suicides and driving people to desperation?
Thank you. Do you want to go?
Yeah. A cornerstone of Green Party policy is that we will introduce a universal basic income. That will be £87 a week, available to absolutely everybody. It is not means tested. It will be available to everybody. That is part of the way of solving the problem. We all live in Brent. I presume we all live in Brent. I've done a lot of leafleting in the last few days, and some of the properties that I've seen people living in have been simply appalling. We have to have a system of taking these properties away from these rogue landlords and going under council control until they can be run properly and adequately, which is not happening yet. But that's I think that's a governmental thing that has to be funded properly for centrally.
William, can you also comment on universal credit? I think that was part of the question.
Well, universal credit, I think, is one of the most obscene things that this country has ever done. It takes, I think, 5 weeks before you can receive a first payment. It's just obscene. And to see people, I mean, it's a great shame that the Conservative Party candidate isn't here today to hear your responses and indeed our responses to him. The fact that you have to wait 5 weeks, the fact that you have to jump through hundreds of hoops, that there are all sorts of different things. The Green Party want to simplify the benefit system vastly, as we also intend to simplify the tax system vastly, to close the loopholes so that there aren't people falling between the cracks, as happens all the time. And no child, no adult, no older person should be made to live in the abject poverty that many of them have had to suffer in the last 9 or 10 years.
Thank you, William.
So, universal credit is cruel. The United Nations report talks about the hostile environment that's been created for disabled people, for people who are poorer, and I see the effects of universal credit. People coming into my office. There's people who've turned to, I mean, it's sad, really. You know, there's people that have turned to prostitution, food banks, and this is because of a system that's taken all the element of care and valuing and treating people like human beings out of it. So the Labour Party will scrap universal credit. We will also scrap the 2-child limit. The rape clause, where if you've got a 3rd child, you have to prove.
Scrap bedroom tax after your first promise.
Yes, we will.
You scrap bedroom.
We will scrap the bedroom, but we wouldn't have it in the first place. We stopped them.
Thank you. We've had bedroom tax.
Okay. So.
She answered it.
Can you stop bedroom tax?
Okay, we've heard. Can you let Dawn finish her contribution? Thank you.
I think there's so much politics and political debate at the moment. There's so much arguing and to and fro-ing that sometimes you just need to take a step back from it. Because actually that's the problem with our politics at the moment, and that's why people are not being treated as people. And so, and this is one of the cruelties of universal credit. So we will create a social security system that has a safety blanket for people, the people that fall on hard times. And as I say, we will scrap universal credit. We will make sure that people are treated with dignity and respect. We will implement the recommendations of the UN report. that talks about what we have to do to undo the damage, and we will ensure that there's no longer a 5-week wait either for universal credit, which has stopped people.
Scrap the bedroom tax.
Okay, can we
Excuse me, could you let the speaker speak?
The bedroom, we, in Parliament...
Oi, listen.
Could we?
It was a Conservative that tried to implement the bedroom tax, and actually we fought against it in Parliament and got a U-turn on that. So there's no way we will introduce them from the bedroom tax. But anyway, so I think you get the message in regards to what a Labour government will do, and ultimately we will treat people as human beings. We've had enough the last 9 years of people being trodden on, and people having to survive by going to food banks. Our country doesn't have to be run this way. Don't be fooled if people think that the country has to be run this way. The government saved no money when they introduced universal credit. In fact, it's cost them more. So if that's the case, you have to ask themselves, why did they do it in the first place? Why? Because it is cruel, and we would stop that.
Thank you, Dawn.
A Lib Dem government would stop the 5-week wait that people have to do for the universal credit payments. That is cruel, it is inhumane, and
Well, you know,
it's going to be...
we've all got things we want to say.
Yeah.
Just shut
Okay.
up.
Can you,
No,
once
I'm-
Deborah's finished, if you want to make a point, you can put your hand up. Yes? Thank you.
Can we
So-
just shut all
Can you-
issues again?
So
Go
there
on.
will be a fund to make sure that no one has to wait for any payments. So that's the main cause of the harm with universal credit. That's one main cause. That's one. The second one is the assessments that people have to go through to get it. They're demeaning. They're especially demeaning for the handicapped and the physically challenged. Very, very demeaning. I was at the MenCap hustings the other day, where this was the #1 concern of the people from MenCap, was how they are treated when they go and try to get their benefits. It was very, very sad, very sad. So what the Liberal Democrats will do on that score is make sure that you bring that assessments in-house, you make sure that there are trained professionals, not box tickers, who say you got here, therefore you don't deserve to get your benefits. If you can get here, you can go to work. That is cruel and inhumane, and we will scrap that completely. But if you scrap universal credit, you replace it with something else. You replace it with something else that you will call something else. So reforming universal credit is exactly the same as scrapping it. Because if you do it correctly, and you do it well, you've got millions of people already on universal credit at the moment. You scrap it completely, you're going to cost thousands, maybe millions to do that. And you will replace it with something that will just have a different name. So you take the good things, you get the people who are already on there, and you reform it, and you make sure that the payments are fairer. And if you throw at me that it was my government that brought in universal credit, then you say, okay, looking backwards, I say this is now time to look forwards. This is a time where you vote looking forwards for a new government that can take care of people and that can end austerity.
Okay.
I think that was rather rude. I think that was rather rude, and I don't really like being...
You know, austerity is really rude, and your party states it.
Can we hold on, please? If you want to make a comment on what the candidate has said, which
Can
is
we wait till
helpful,
after the questions, because can we wait till the end?
well,
So
excuse me,
everyone
I'm
can
sharing
get
this. Thank you.
on? Because that's what-
I'm sharing this. Thank you, Simone.
Well, you're being hard on me, but not on anyone else, okay?
There's lots of, I can see there's a lot of hands up. Unless you want to make a very useful and helpful comment, I'd really like to move on because I've got a lot of questions. Yeah, very quickly, very quickly.
Nobody can hear what you're saying.
The lady said that millions of people already on universal credit. The system doesn't work. The people on there are already suffering. So there's no point reforming it. The whole thing needs to go. And people need to be treated humanely. People are dying on universal credit. Children are starving because of universal credit.
I can make every
He's had his hand up for a long time. I'll just take a comment from this gentleman and then we will move on. Thank you.
Until March, I worked for the British Red Cross. Previously, I used to work with vulnerable people about 10 years ago. And then,
Can you be quick then?
I went back to work and I started working with vulnerable people in Brent. I saw an absolute horror story. The absolute degradation of people's lives. You couldn't believe what happened in the 10 years, right, since the coalition government came into power. Now, every single one, the bedroom tax, universal credit, everything. The leader of the Liberal Party voted for them, Jo Swinson.
I think we've heard that.
She voted for them more than gold, right? A vote for the Liberal Party is a vote for Tory light.
Thank you.
That's why you must have a Labour government.
Okay. Simone, you messaged me via Facebook and you wanted to ask a question about disability and human rights. Off you go.
Hi, my name's Simone Aspis. I'm a disabled activist who works for Reclaiming Our Future. Okay. Hi, my name's Simone Aspis. I'm a disabled person myself living in Brent. The government are the only country found violating disabled people's human rights in the whole world by an independent monitoring committee. What I'm going to ask you is this. Austerity has been used as a big excuse to keep denying disabled people's human rights. So I don't want the word austerity to be used. I'm going to ask every candidate what they're going to do to move money, yes we have money, resources, from a particular type of budget or scheme that will promote disabled people's human rights.
Thank you, Simone.
It's a practical, durable thing. We've got resources, so I don't want to hear the A word. I want to hear each one of you say what oppressive policy and money's resourced it gone into, and what we would do to move that money to the right place for disabled people.
Thank you, Simone, for keeping it short. Deborah, do you want to start this time? Okay, sorry.
Well, we will uphold the Human Rights Act. We will use money from our 1p on income tax that we will raise for the health service and for social care to put that to helping disabled people as well. I think that you're absolutely right. It's appalling, absolutely appalling, the way that disabled people have been treated, and we will work very hard as a Liberal Democrat government to make sure that no one in the country is discriminated against or hurt for whatever reason, because we will uphold the Human Rights Act and we will put money behind helping disabled people.
I'm looking at existing money being used in the wrong place. Can
Okay.
you identify? I don't want to hear
I'm not
new
in
money.
government.
I want to hear what's
Simone,
in the
you've got to let
system.
the candidates answer as they decide. And it's up to you to then decide what you're going to do about the answer. Thank you. That's a good
It's part of Green Party policy. We will be, when we reform the tax system, we're going to generate £20 billion a year out of that by streamlining tax system, by closing loopholes, by going after the big guys like Google and Amazon and people like that. That will then give us a pot of money that we can then spend on the things that we believe need spending on. We're planning to spend £6 billion every year between now and 2030 directly into the NHS system. We're also planning to give £4.5 billion to local councils. So that's the two main areas that can find funding for people with disability, whether that's physical or mental. I think we were the only party in the 2017 election to address the issues of mental health in this country. Mental health has been swept under the carpet for far too long, and we're planning to work on that as well as people who are physically disabled as well. That is the Green Party policy. Thank you.
Thank you, William. And Dawn,
I will mention austerity, just to say that austerity was a political choice.
Yeah.
So it didn't have to happen, it was a political choice, and we will not make that choice as a Labour government. The other thing about universal credit is that it's a digital-only approach. That excludes loads of people, and loads of people with disabilities as well. So that's why it's important the universal credit stops and is changed. Hate crime against disabled people went up 37%, the hostile environment created by this government. The Labour government would implement the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We would implement that in our first week of being in government. That's already a commitment. So everything that they've got there, all the recommendations, that would be implemented under a Labour government. We will also, there's more, we will also increase employment and support allowance by £30 per week for those in a work-related activity group, raise the basic rate of support for children with disabilities to the level of child tax credits, ensure that severely disabled people without a formal carer receive extra support to enable them to meet the extra costs that they inevitably face, and we will support those who look after others. We will value people, no matter who they are or no matter their abilities.
Thank you very much. A completely different question. Lindsay, you've got a question on the arms trade. Can we give a microphone to Liz, please? It's coming, Liz. Here it is.
Can you hear? Okay. The government has licensed £2 billion worth of arms sales to repressive regimes since 2017. If elected, would you stop arms exports to areas of conflict and human rights violating governments? In particular, stop arms exports to Saudi Arabia, bombing Yemen, and this also applies to Israel, who uses military force to maintain the oppression of Palestinians.
Thank you.
The simplest response to that is yes. It's one of our core tenets of our Labour government in terms of if we sell arms to other countries, and we will put human rights at the core of our international development. Let me just read. Labour will put human rights, international law and tackling climate change at the heart of our international policies and use our global influence to end the bomb first, talk later approach to security. Labour will always do what is needed to protect the security of people in the UK. I mean, the days of selling arms and weapons that are used in conflict and are in breach of the human rights laws will be over under a Labour government.
Deborah.
She can't say the same.
Sorry?
You can't say the same.
Well, we will have a policy. The foreign policy is not my strongest suit, I have to say. But I used to work for an anti-corruption organisation, so I do understand about selling arms illegally around the world. And the Liberal Democrat government would stop sales to countries that violated human rights. They would do that.
Saudi Arabia, for instance.
And they would to Saudi Arabia too.
Israel.
And they would look at everything on a case-by-case basis, because there is no simple answer to every problem about international relations. You can't blanket say one side is right and the other side is wrong. There are always two sides to every problem. I'm afraid to say that it's very simple to just turn around and blanket say, we won't do this. We will respect human rights everywhere. We're the party of tolerance, we're the party of inclusion, we're the party of diversity. We will do that.
Thank you, Deborah.
It is part of the Green Party manifesto that we will end all government contracts on arms. It's just, we end that. What we also will be doing is that we will be banning nuclear. We'll certainly be banning nuclear weapons for this country, and we will be one of the leading countries in banning nuclear weapons worldwide. Nuclear weapons are obviously incredibly dangerous. Once one goes off, they all go off. It would be the end of the human race if ever they were deployed. They also suck in vast amounts of money, which could and should be spent on making all our lives better. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm going to move on with the questions. The next question is about crime. Crime in the area, Lucy O'Brien, and James Cockburn, sexual assaults near the DH2, Dollis Hill 2. So, could I start with Lucy O'Brien, if you could ask your question?
Yeah, I'd just like to say the police force and the criminal justice system are under intense strain at the moment due to austerity and cuts. And I just want to know what each party will be doing to combat crime, locally and nationally.
And then James Cockburn, are you there, James? Do you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I was planning to vote Conservative, but you've now got me back as a swing voter because this guy didn't turn up.
Because what?
Because he didn't turn up, so I'm not going to vote for him.
Right.
Yeah, it's just quickly, my wife and I moved here 4 years ago, and there seems to be increased crime around the tube. And we were told there was going to be CCTV, which I believe hasn't been installed. So it's a general question about dealing with crime in the area, and then specifically about getting the tube fixed in particular.
Thank you very much. Do you want to start, William?
I'll start, yes. The police force has been decimated over the last 5 years. We all know why. It's the A word. The Conservatives are claiming that they will put 20,000 more policemen on the streets. That's only to replace the 20,000 that they took off 4 or 5 years ago. We need much more care from the police force. We need more police walking our streets. I've lived in this area for 30 years. I remember when you could see ordinary policemen walking up and down the high road every day. They're slightly starting to come back now, but not enough. We need to have a greater police presence on our streets, but also they need to have greater powers in tackling things like hate crime. That's another very important part of our manifesto. We will of course bring more policemen out onto the streets and hope that our criminal justice system can recover from the damage that's been done to it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ultimately, you can't keep people safe on the cheap. And that's what this government's been trying to do. They have cut, as William said, 12,000 police. That's not even including the people in the back end offices that have been cut too. That's just front end police force. So they've cut a lot of the police force. So all that reinvestment needs to go back in. In regards to local crime, I've had a couple of meetings, community meetings, to do with both crimes outside Wilson Station and Hill Station. Dun Hill, but Dollis Hill Station. And so we've had a couple of community meetings where we've got the council together, the police, and British Transport Police. We've got them all together. I don't know if you guys were at any of the meetings that we've held. So there has been some mobile CCTV vehicles moving around that the council has commissioned. The police have also caught the predator. There was a sexual predator around the station. So that sexual predator has now been caught. There was more than one, so that sexual predator has now been caught, which is good. There's complete monitoring that's going on in regards to how we can improve it further. We're taking action in regards to ensuring there's adequate lighting around and adequate posters around as well, just informing people what they need to do and just to remind them. So there's a whole series of events and things that have been happening. If you go onto my website, there's a special section for policing for the area, and then we can update you. There's updates that go on there all the time, so we can update you on everything that I'm doing, and you can always just feed in if there's anything else that you think that I've missed or we've missed. Hopefully, if I get re-elected, that is, that we will make sure that we pursue that. So just keep informing us. The more you inform me, and the other thing is really important actually, is that please report anything, because what happens is the council react to the number of reports of incidents that they have. So don't be afraid of reporting things to the council, because that's where they would deploy CCTV or deploy extra policing. So the more you report, the more safety measures that you will have. So please just report everything that happens. It's important.
Thank you. Can I ask you if it's a point you want to make, or do you want to slip, or what do you want to do?
No, just have it's a point I want to make about what Dawn Butler has just said, and the question I had as well.
So really, I've got about 4 more questions.
Can you be very fast?
Can you be very, very fast?
Yeah, very fast. Abraham Ryan, I've lived in Wilmington for the past 30 years, and I've seen the area go from being okay to being bad to being absolutely terrible. Most of it has to do with crime, particularly crimes against a person, robberies, drug abuse, etc. I'd like to know what you intend to do to make this better, because what Dawn Butler said, I take as a pinch of salt. I have written to her about this. All she has done is forwarded my letters to various people in the council, which I already know, so she has done nothing about it, so I won't be voting for her. I'll be hoping for a Liberal Democratic candidate instead.
Okay. William, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I'd just like to add something that Dawn said about talking to the council. I live in Lechmere Road. We had a problem with knife crime in our garden. People were leaving their knives. I live at the end of Lechmere Road, where there's a large area that has no light, and there were drug dealers hanging around there all the time. The council, about 18 months ago, installed new LED lighting, which is, I think, 5 times as bright as the ordinary street lighting was. It made an immense difference. The knife crime people disappeared overnight. It was fantastically successful. So please do lobby the council. Tell them the problems that you've got with your street. Tell them about the problems with knife crime or anything else like that. And think, is the light going to solve this? It would be really good. Thank you.
Deborah hasn't had a chance to answer yet. So could we just... Can Deborah answer the question?
Liberal Democrats... Is this on? Can you hear me? Liberal Democrats are going to put... Liberal Democrats are going to put £1 billion into restoring community policing. I think that is an incredibly important role, that we need more policemen on the streets. And I, in my own street, which is right on the border of Brent Central, I have been working with residents for the past year to try and stop antisocial behaviour on our streets. It's the convening power of people like the MP that will have a way to help them to do this. But you need to get everybody together. We got street people together. We got the councillors together. We looked at what we could do on our streets. We are now going to have a meeting with the council to try and get CCTV there. The Ladbrokes on the corner, adding to the problem. You have to call the police and log your complaints every time it happens, because that's the way you will get a response. But this £1 billion, which will be spent on community policing, will put more officers on the road to deter these kinds of crimes that are happening. And it will go towards the programs for young people to get them off the streets so they don't have to go into the gangs. We had a huge cut in the programs for young people, the after-school programs. I see it from the school near me. They all come hang out at the end of the road, where the drug dealers get them to do the county line stuff. It's horrible. We need to tackle that problem socially and with more police on the streets.
Dawn wants to come back because you made a comment about Dawn, and I think it's only fair that she's given the right to reply.
Absolutely. If you write to your MP and your MP then forwards your concerns onto the relevant people, that's the sign of a good MP. That's what a good MP should do. Good MP should forward on your letter onto the relevant people, because I'm not actually responsible for putting the police on the streets, but what I am responsible for is highlighting the issues that my constituents have. And as I say, it's really important that you report things to the council. They've got an OWL, O-W-L, I think it's an app, or you go online and report it to OWL. And the more you report it, the more you let them know that things are happening, the more resources will be deployed there. And that's why it's vital and important. And I have done a lot of work to combat crime in the area. I myself was assaulted on the Jubilee line and the person was put into jail. So don't tell me that I don't do or care about my constituent Brent, because I find that extremely offensive.
I'll take two very quick comments. Yes. Do you want to make a quick comment? So this gentleman be given a...
Regarding the LED lighting, sorry.
Regarding
the LED lighting, it was certainly an improvement over the lighting we had on our street before. It was more lit after that. But I also wanted to mention something that I don't know if anybody's heard of or what they'll think, but have we tested the actual lighting itself to see if it is not tracking all citizens via their cell phones through 5G?
Thank you.
Checked it.
I don't think we can.
I'll
I'll put the council leader here. And just that lady over there, she's had her hand up for quite a while. One of you two, just one.
First of all, I'm going to say thank you to Dawn for supporting the Brent Factor, which is behind knife crime. So, in terms of crime, thank you so much. So, instead of coming up, we've got to work with our MPs, the police, our community. This is what the Brent Factor is about. Okay, it's about reaching out to our young people as individuals. I grew up in this area. Okay, and there's so much. People come up with so many issues. It's about coming up together with solutions. And I can say thank you so much to Dawn. That community meeting at the Leary Constantine Centre was amazing. So thank you. I'm part of the Dunhill Wall Panel, the police. So, you know, it's things like that we need to get involved with. I'm also a Sunday school teacher at St Mary's Church. I help out with the food bank. You know, there's so many more things.
I've got so many questions.
Give me a minute. It's all very well us coming up with all these problems together. We need to work together. We've got our youth out there that are lost. I used to work in the job centre. Universal credit is a load of rubbish. Yeah, and it's about helping people from our hearts.
Thank you. Now it's 4 o'clock. We've got half an hour to go, and I've got quite a lot of questions. So we have to